Hi, everybody. My name is Sophie. I'm 21 years old. I'm based in Los Angeles now, but I grew up in Michigan. I moved here when I was 18.
How do you like living in LA?
I love it. I'm an actress and a creative just like everybody else here, so there's so much more opportunity here for me.
What got you to move to LA?
Yeah, so ultimately, I wanted to move here when I was 18, but I knew I couldn't afford to because I didn't have enough money. So I got a really big scholarship to a college in Orange County. So that got me to be able to move from Michigan to California. I completely moved out here on my own. I literally drove myself, packed myself, moved myself into college alone when I was 18, just because financially my parents couldn't afford to help me out in any way. So yeah, I graduated valedictorian in high school, got really great grades because I knew I needed a scholarship if I was getting out of Michigan. And so that was what I did.
What did you study in college?
Yeah, so my degree is technically in acting for film, but it's under the theater branch. So I basically have an associate's in theater.
Did you get a full ride scholarship?
I did not, no, because it was an out-of-state school, so I literally got their maximum scholarship. I was in their honors program. This school gave me everything. I also got the maximum amount from FAFSA. My family's estimated contribution towards college was zero. That's the type of financial situation I was coming from. So I actually had to take out student loans to be able to afford to go, which kind of broke my heart, but we'll talk more about that later, I'm sure. So I got my associates in 1 year. I was only at school for a year. It was 2020 is when I graduated high school and started college. So it was super weird. We were living in the dorms, but everything was online. But that made it so I could take a ton of credits, and I just got my 2 year degree in 1 year and was like, that's enough for me. I want to be an actor. You don't really need to go for longer. Plus, I would have had to take out more loans. So I was like, it's just not worth it. Yeah. So actually, while I was in college, I don't even know how I did it, but January of my freshman year, so after I got back to California from Christmas break, I got a almost full-time job. It was 35 hours a week working as an assistant producer in Los Angeles. So I would drive from Orange County to Los Angeles every day and work this 9 to 5 job. And since all my classes were online, I would just do class while working this job. And so because of that job, I had been able to save up some money. So I only had a few $1,000s at the end of the school year, but I was like, I have a few $1,000s and I have a job. So I technically, it's going to be hard, but yeah, I can afford to live in LA. So my choices were basically go back to Michigan, crash with my parents. I was 19, or move to LA. And I was like, I want to do the dang thing. So I just moved to LA and was working that job. It sounds so sad to say now, 19 an hour. Hence why I don't work there anymore. But yeah, so I was at that job a year and a half, but be mindful, I was acting and modeling probably at least 1 or 2 gigs a week. In addition to this job, I really wouldn't have been able to afford to live in LA with just that income. I think that income covered my basic needs, but if I wanted to have a life and do acting classes and all the things, there was no way with that. So I made money from that, acting, modeling, and then I also on the side started a content creation type business. And so nowadays I full-time act, model, and do content. Yeah, so kind of accidentally, I guess you would call it a business. Are you familiar with user-generated content? It's kind of popping off lately. I feel like everybody's been doing it, but I started during COVID kind of dabbling in that because a lot of companies, for those who don't know what it is, it's basically advertisements that people film at their houses. And it's promoted on social media. But yeah, I started doing that 2.5 years ago during COVID, because actually on the actor sites I'm on, they posted, because obviously it was COVID, you couldn't shoot actual commercials. So that's around the time user generated content got big. So I started dabbling in that world. And it wasn't until about a year ago I realized the amount of money you could truly make from content creation. And that kind of changed everything. And I've been very blessed acting and modeling wise as well over the past year, where I've gotten quite substantial gigs because it is inconsistent income with acting and modeling, but I'll do a job where it's $2,000 for a day and stuff like that. So between that and content creation, they're quite balance each other out. At the moment, my main goal is to be a series regular on a TV show. But you can do, acting's one of those businesses where you can do everything right and still sometimes you just never know. But that's kind of what my focus is right now. And Yeah, I just want to be a working actor, which I already am. So kind of that is my goal. I'm kind of living in my goal and living in that dream right now. So yeah, I definitely want to own my own business one day. I'm not entirely sure what that looks like. I don't know if that will be something acting related, like mentoring actors, because I do think that is something I'm interested in down the line. But also, this whole like content creation thing has also kind of opened my eyes to that world as well, and maybe doing something in that area. But yeah, I've been getting on myself about that. Like, you need to start, you need to start. But again, I'm 21, so I've just been like reading a lot of books about starting a business and like all of the things right now. So I'm kind of just doing a lot of thinking, but definitely in the next few years, I do want to launch my own business of some sort. So that is a goal. Yeah. So my parents got divorced when I was super little. I was like 4. My dad got remarried, so I have a bunch of like half siblings and step siblings. But kind of I spent like half my week with my dad, half my week with my mom, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I had a pretty good childhood, I would say. We like traveled a little bit, things like that. Particularly with my dad, he was kind of the breadwinner, I guess. Like he gave my mom a lot in child support and stuff like that. But I would say, yeah, we'll just say that. I guess growing up, I didn't do any sports or anything like that. I wanted to dance and do acting for the longest time, but I was always told we couldn't afford it. And when I was in middle school, actually, a woman from our church like sponsored me to do competitive dance. And then also when I got to middle school, that's when like plays started in school, so those were like free to be a part of. So that's kind of when I started dabbling in the arts and really discovered myself, because I was a really shy kid before all of that. But yeah, that there was never enough of it, and that I would have such bad anxiety because it would always be like I would ask my mom for money, like if I needed money for a field trip or something, legit $20 for like for a field trip or something at school.
So you grew up in Michigan. Your parents, I guess what you learned from them, you said there's never enough money. What else did they teach you about money?
There was a lot of just anxiety around money. Like I would literally, for whatever reason, I felt more comfortable asking my mom for money, but she made less money than my dad. So she would always be like, ask your dad. And my dad, he would pretty much always give me money, but he would guilt trip me. So I would have such anxiety about asking him, even though I knew I was gonna get it, he would just like guilt trip me. Like there's always been such a lack mentality, even for him, even though he might have made more money than my mom. My dad makes like 100K, 120K a year. And my mom's just an accountant, so much less than that. But she had a lack around it and lived and still, yeah, she lived like paycheck to paycheck. So she legitimately didn't have enough money. And I mean, he might have too. Like, I know life's expensive, but yeah, just a very like lacking mentality and a lot of anxiety around it. And yeah.
Did they ever talk to you about money really much growing up, like teach you about it? Or was it really just like, hey, we don't have enough money at certain times?
Honestly, no, there wasn't much teaching around it. It was legitimately just, yeah, we don't really have enough, but nobody taught me how to budget or how to manage my money or anything like that. We didn't really talk about it much. And when we did, it was just that there's not enough. That was basically the only time it came up.
What did you learn anything? Can you looking back on it about money in your childhood growing up? Or is there like a key lesson that stands out to you?
A key lesson that stands out to me. No, honestly, like we just very much had to like, don't talk about it. And if we do talk about it, it's not enough. Yeah. And like save, like they would always tell me saving is good, but nobody taught me how to like actually put that into practice. But yeah, we very much like it wasn't really talked about a whole ton unless I brought it up asking for money. So
yeah, well, let's dive into your current financial situation. You're 21. You just graduated college a couple of years ago. Got 2 years associate degree. Got a lot of scholarships. Valedictorian. How did you define your current financial situation on a scale of 1 to 10?
Gosh, honestly, I'm doing like quite well. I would say an 8. I have like a really, really good savings, all of the things. Like I'm doing well. My only thing is I still to this day have a lot of anxiety about money. Like I legitimately have almost a year. You know how they say to like build an emergency fund? I have almost a year saved up of an emergency fund based on my like budgeting template, well over the 6 months that was my first goal, was to have 6 months of an emergency fund. But I just kept going, and I don't necessarily think that's bad, but I feel like I'm doing quite well, especially compared to like, I don't know, I talk to a lot of people that are a lot older than me in LA that seem to have a lot of student debt. Not only that, but they also have like no savings. So if an emergency were to happen, they wouldn't do well. But I think because of me, I always knew that even now my parents couldn't really help me. I've kind of always been financially on my own. I think that's been a kick in the butt to like really, really save. So yeah, I would say I'm doing well, but I still feel anxious and it never feels like enough. And I feel like money's one of those things. Will it ever feel like enough? That's kind of something I'm learning. But yeah.
It's like the saying that, money, you always compare yourself to the next level, no matter where you get. If you get a boat, if you get a nice house, and you always compare it to your neighbor who has a bigger house, a bigger boat, or a nicer car.
Yeah.
If you don't figure out how to be happy with money, then you can always find yourself chasing that, or I want more, not being happy with where you are. I definitely think that's awesome. You built up a great emergency fund. Who taught you about that? How did you learn about building an emergency fund, or why you should do that?
Honestly, the Dave Ramsey technique, I'm sure you've heard of that. That was kind of the plan I was following. I've just always liked him and subscribed to that, but that was kind of where I heard about that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, saving an emergency fund, being 21 years old and having over 6 months of an emergency fund is a great spot to be in, and especially living in LA and being in a career field where it does fluctuate a lot with acting and modeling gigs, that your income can be irregular. It's really phenomenal to be in a spot where you have that saved up, because 1 month you might have an amazing month, and the next month you might have slow months with gigs and opportunities. So let's talk about the student loan debt. You took out $5,500 worth of student loans. Where is that today? Is that paid off? Is it still sitting there? Is it on pause? Want to understand that.
So I should get some perspective on this, but this is what I did. I'd almost completely paid it off. And then the beginning of this year, I only owed like a tiny bit more money. Biden's student loan forgiveness for $20,000 plan came out. And I found out, I was like, oh my God, if this gets forgiven for people, but I paid off this $5,000, like that is so annoying, because I could have kept that $5,000 for me. So I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to. Maybe we can edit it out later if it's bad. But I got a refund for that like $4,500 I paid on my student loan. I got a refund for it. And since then, there's still a pause on student loan payments. And obviously his forgiveness hasn't gone through, but I just have that money sitting in a separate account, that $5,500, in case his forgiveness doesn't come through or interest starts building on my loans. Because since I graduated in 2020, there's been no interest on them or anything like that. So I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens with that. So I have the money to pay off my loans ready to go in case something happens. I just haven't done it yet, because I would hate to do it and then have the loans get forgiven, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And it's definitely a strategy I've heard people doing, and I've heard it can go great and it can go poorly. As long as you keep it in an account, like you said, don't touch it. You're not like, oh, I want to go buy a new car and I'm going to use this, or I'm going to go to Hawaii or go to Australia and spend this $5,000, and you keep that in a separate account, in a high yield savings account, getting a couple percent. I mean, you're not going to make much money on that, but as long as you keep that completely separate from your emergency fund, from everything else, and you're waiting until, I think the decision is supposed to be out by the end of June 30th, I believe. And as long as it might get pushed on another month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it might be. But as long as you have that money set aside and you say, okay, depending on whenever that decision is final, if you do get it forgiven, great. You got $5,500 back in your pocket, essentially forgiven. And if they say, hey, we're not forgiving this or whatever, then you can pay that off that day and never have to pay more interest on it. Definitely a route with it being on pause that I'm okay with that being that way. If you were accruing interest right now and you weren't going to know for 6 or 12 months, I'd say, do you really want to depend on the federal government to $5,000? Then it's like, I would personally rather just have that off my balance sheet, out of my head, that, hey, I have no more student loan debt. But since we're right around the corner, we got a month left until we should have an answer. It's not a bad spot to do. So
that's my thought. Yeah. And I'm the same way, like knowing I have any sort of debt, like freaks me out so bad. But then I remind myself, I'm like, Sophie, you have the money. Like, it's fine if it doesn't work out. So you can play it by ear, but we'll see.
You're smart. You know how to save money. You've been doing it. And I have confidence you're not going to go take that and go shopping on Rodeo Drive or go to Hawaii or where it might be with that money. So as long as you're keeping it separate, and when you have that decision, you make it and pay it off or get it forgiven, you'll be in a great spot. So let's dive into your current expenses. Apart from that, actually, we'll go to the second loan you have, car payment. Let's dive into that. I see on the budget you sent over, you have a car payment for $293 a month.
Yeah. So I was driving a 2009 Toyota Prius for the longest time, like drove it from Michigan, drove it out here. I actually had a really cool opportunity last year where I got like a fully paid trip and I lived in Tokyo for 3 months because of like acting and modeling. It was a super cool gig. But when I got back to LA in January, my car had like taken a crap. It was already like constantly I had problems on it. Catalytic converters get stolen in LA all the time. And I'd already dropped like it happened like 3 times to me and it was $1,000 each time. And it happened again while I was in Japan. My catalytic converter got stolen again. So I was like, clearly I just can't have, and I had a shield on it. So I was like, clearly I just can't have this car in LA. It had like 260,000 miles on it. It was making a funny noise. I like got back and my roommates were kind of like, Sophie, like it might be time. And I was like, yeah. So I like couldn't drive it right when I got back. And honestly, looking back, I wish I wouldn't have done this, but I took advice from people on my circle and they were like, you should just get a reliable car and have a car payment. But I've never been like a super bougie person. I was like, maybe I'll just buy a car like outright and avoid the car payment. But then with doing that with my budget, sometimes the cars are a little bit more unreliable and stuff like that. As I was talking to people, they were like, so if you don't want to have the same thing where you're spending like $1,000 over and over, because when I added it up, I had paid $3,500 for this Prius, but I had spent in total almost $10K on it with like the repairs and everything. So I was like, I do not want to do that again. So that was like kind of made me nervous about buying like a junker or just buying a car outright. So I decided to go the car payment route. Plus people were like, this will help you build your credit, all of the things. And also I just think I was quite desperate to get a car because it's hard to not have a car in LA and I had shoots coming up. So I ended up buying a 2017 Hyundai Elantra SE, which the car, even that isn't like a super bougie car. And I feel like I'm paying way too much for it. But yeah, that was how that happened. It's basically, I was like, oh, I could drop like a lot of money in a car right now, or just do a car payment, build up my credit, know that it's reliable, all of the things.
So let's dive more into that. I mean, the Prius sounds like a nightmare with stolen 3 times and repairs. 260,000 miles on it. You definitely gave it the life it needed.
I drove it into the ground. That's what I tell people. So
that's what I'm doing with my truck. It's got 190,000 miles on it, and I think it's got 10 years left at least in it. So
they last like forever.
15 years old, and it's got more life in it. So, but I guess going into the car, I'm not surprised. I mean, a lot of people in this world, car payments are the norm, and everyone's like, hey, get a car payment. It's fine to have a car payment, etc. So how much did you finance for this car?
I financed a little over 10K. I don't know the exact number, but
you know what your interest rate is on it?
I don't. I should. Just like 4 point something sound right? I think it's 4 point something.
When did you do this? Was it 2021, 2022?
January of this year.
This year? Okay. That seems a little low. Interest rates have been a little
okay.
But
yeah, it's a gross amount because I remember like sitting there thinking to myself and being like, ick. I can send you the stats later if you want, but
would love to. Let's see what the average car rate was in 2023 this year. About 6% in January of this year on 60 month. This was new car loans, but yeah, we'd love for you to send it over after and I'll update.
Yeah, I will.
What it was, but how do you feel having a car payment?
Not even gonna lie, the minute it happened, you have like a cool down period in California. I literally tried to use my cool down period, but there was like a little sneaky thing in the contract that they like snuck in there. I regretted doing it right away just because I thought about, I can't remember it now, but I did think about the interest rate and all of the things. And I realized that I had listened too much to like external voices and people I trust and people that are awesome. But I've also learned just because you love somebody and respect them in certain areas of life doesn't mean you should take advice from them on everything. And I was taking financial advice from people that I really, really love and trust, but I shouldn't have been taking financial advice from them. So that was kind of an immediate regret. And again, I'm 21. I can afford the car payment, so it's fine. But it was definitely like and again, I'm not a super bougie person. So if cars were something that like I loved and I wanted to invest in, like whatever, that makes sense. But I'm just not. I also think, again, the Prius kind of like scarred me a little bit. I was like, so if I buy a newer car, it's more reliable and I wouldn't have repairs, which is true. It's actually been perfect in that sense. So I don't know, maybe it ends up being worth it, because if I were to buy like just have bought a car outright, maybe it would have a lot of problems. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, but to be quite honest with you, I did instantly regret it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean, having a looming car payment, you know that money just coming out every single month is probably not the best or most fun spot to be in. The great thing is, I mean, your income's great, and frankly, you have the ability to pay that off over the next 12 months easily if you wanted to, and you could get rid of that car payment really easily, and then you wouldn't have that over looming debt or just thought of a car payment looming over your head. So have you thought about that? What would it look like if I try to pay this off for the next 12 months?
Now that you mention it, I had thought about, and I don't know why I haven't done this yet, but I'm glad we're having this chat, is like paying off the car faster than I need to. Is that what you're saying? Like, as opposed to just paying the $392 a month, doing more than that so it doesn't accumulate more interest. That is something I intended on doing and should be doing, and will do.
You have your income and you have extra savings every single month. I mean, looking at your budget right here, you got $3,000 a month and about just under $3,000 a month in leftover savings after you account for all your living expenses. So you could have this car paid off in 4 months if you wanted to.
I know, that is true. Not to toot my own horn as well, but I was like looking through my finances. I have like doubled my savings this year since January, and it's only May. So I was like, yeah, maybe instead of I'm such a stickler though, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I do have a lot of money saved up, but I'm quite like, I'm not just going out buying clothes and like living. I'm in a very much like a saving place right now. Anyway, yeah, maybe that is something I should start doing.
I mean, you have a great income. Looking at income you're bringing in, we'll go to that. How much you're making a month right now?
Okay, so this fluctuates so much. I literally was looking back at these stats. I was like, I had a 5-figure month, and then I also had a month that was substantially lower than 5 figures this month. So it's like, yeah, so I did the average, but it yeah. This has been a good year though. My lowest month was $6,500 this year. But it like balanced out when I did the math to like 7,500 a month from the past 5 months. But yeah, but keep in mind I'm a freelancer, so I also set aside like some of that money for taxes at the end of the year because I'm not trying to screw myself over. But yeah, it fluctuates a lot. But I like to tell myself in my head, like, I don't know, 6,000 a month.
Yeah, I mean that's a great job being 21 freelance in LA. I would probably set aside personally, like at least, I mean, you're in California, so you have higher state income taxes, but I'd probably set aside at least 25% towards taxes. That puts you about $5,600 a month in terms of your take home pay. But
I've been doing 20, so I'm glad you said that. Okay, we'll do.
Yes, if we go, we'll just do a state income tax calculator, California, and bringing in, we'll call it $90,000 a year. You're going to be paying. Get this loads. It looks like you'll be bringing home about $5,400 a month.
Isn't that crazy? Oh my gosh.
You'll be paying, I mean, the marginal tax rate in California is, you'll be in the 9.3% bracket. Your effective tax rate is essentially 5.18 since it's marginally goes up, but bringing in about 5.4 thousand a month after taxes. So yeah, make sure that right now you're not about $600 a month difference that you're kind of allocating towards taxes. So just make sure you're doing that appropriately. You don't come around next April and get hit with a tax bill that's 25% larger than you thought you would be getting. But even then, bringing home $5,400 a month and you're spending $3,300 a month, $3,400 a month, you're still saving $2,000 a month, being a freelancer, being 21 years old, living in California, quite frankly. That's pretty impressive living in California considering what the cost of living is out there. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So definitely something I would be proud of if I was you, that you're not renting a apartment that's $4,000 a month or $3,000 a month. Are you living with roommates, I'm assuming?
I am. Yeah, I am. We have a 3-bed, 3-bath. So
that's awesome. Spending $1,100 a month in California, you're in a great spot to be saving money, paying off your. Personally, what I would do is, I was on your shoes, I'd be attacking this card debt just to get that off of your books.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I also think too, because I got a 2017 car, I'm like, once it's paid off, I can drive this bad boy into the ground. Because again, I said I'm not bougie, and like I don't need a fancy car. That money can be
that can last you 10 more years at least. And if you have an extra $300 a month that you could say, okay, I want to continue saving $2,000 a month, but I want to spend this $300 a month on traveling or going to hair done or going to a sporting event or whatever that might be, then you have that ability to do that. So that's what I'll definitely look at, see what your interest rate is on that. Some people will give you advice that, hey, if your interest rate's 3%, 4%, don't pay it off early. I'm in the boat where I think if you can't pay cash for a car or you have a car loan, you need to pay it off the next 12 months, you need to get rid of it. Because personally, I wouldn't want the overlooming just thought of having car debt on my mind. It's just not a spot I would personally want to be in, and know like, hey, $500, $700, whatever it might be coming out of my shoes or coming out of my pocket every single month. And I would personally want to be paying that off. So
yeah, that makes sense. Plus the interest, that's what like disgusts me is I'm like, this car is literally worth like $10,000, but I don't even remember when I calculated at the beginning of this year though. I was like, oh my God, that's like an extra $1,000 for what?
Especially in the early months and years of the loan, it's all front weighted as well. So you're paying a lot heavier interest payments in the beginning half than you are in the second half.
Yeah. I will say though, it has helped my credit score, which is kind of nice. Not that even, I don't even know.
Credit score only matters, in my opinion, if you're buying a house or you're getting a loan. And I don't know if you're planning on buying a house in LA anytime soon, but it's expensive. And if you're not going after more loans, then credit score doesn't really matter. I'm anti-car loans, and I think it's good for buying a house. But if you listen to Dave Ramsey, those guys, they don't even have credit, and they can still get approved for homes. So it really just depends.
Yeah. Again, it's listening to the voices. That's like another thing, I don't know, that I've been navigating through my early 20s. It's just like, I don't know who to trust. And you hear so many people have so many opinions on money, but
you have a lot of opinions, and a lot of people are also broke. So
that's also facts. Yeah. Like I said, they can be a great person. Doesn't mean you want to take money advice from them.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, your financial position, bringing in $5,400 a month on average and spending $3,300, you're in a good spot. Got over $2,000 left over every single month after accounting for taxes, and that's a good spot to start thinking about. Okay, how can I start investing? How can I start building towards retirement, saving for that, or what's another goal that I want to do in the future? Do I want to save it for a big trip? And also think about how can I pay this car payment off quicker, so I open up $300 more a month in your cash flow to not be going towards a bank, but be going in your pocket so you can spend on something you want. Going to that, have you started thinking about investing for the future, for retirement, for just later in life purchases or events, or to start building wealth?
Yeah, so it's funny you bring that up. At the beginning of this year, I started investing with Acorns. And because again, I knew squat about it, and this was like the easiest way to, so I actually included this in my like subscriptions because I didn't know how else to include it on the budget sheet. But I do $120 a month, so $30 a week towards Acorns. I don't really know what it's been doing much. Well, I look at it and it's like $250,000 when you're 61 is like what it tells me. But I'm not gonna lie, I've tried to like dabble a little bit into investing, but at this point in my life, it just overwhelms me a little bit. So Acorns seemed like the simplest thing, but it is something I do want to delve further into. But that's what I've been doing so far this year.
Well, I mean, that's an awesome place to start, quite frankly. Acorns is one of the first ones that that got me into investing a little bit more as well. And Tom and I still have an Acorns account, frankly, as well. Anyway, Acorns is a great spot. I mean, it puts you into index funds, international funds, S&P 500 funds, small caps, etc. So it's really good just allowing people to start getting their feet wet with investing and not putting them in single stocks that they could lose their money on, is putting them in big baskets of index funds, which is an awesome spot to be in. And it also shows you like the premise behind the name Acorns is awesome too, because it's going to take years and years and years for you to build a big portfolio, consistency, consistent watering, consistent investments into it. But when you're 21 years old, you're 21 right now, when you're 65, if you put in $120 a month at a 7% annual return, accounting for inflation, you're going to have $423,000 in there, which that's only putting $120 in a month, and you have the ability to put more in there if you wanted to. So that just shows you the power of compound interest and time on your side. You're young, you're 21 years old. I started investing when I was 16 or 17 years old, and that allowed me to start Dave Ramsey actually took Dave Ramsey's course when I was in high school, and he got me to start thinking about compound interest, and I would play around with his compound interest calculator all the time. And like, if I started saving and investing this much money, then how much money would I have when I'm 50, 60 years old? And just learning how to invest in that way, and all these different get rich quick schemes saying, you can turn $1,000 into $1 million in the next 6 months. That's never going to happen. probably someone selling you a course or selling you something on an Amazon drop shipping account or whatever it might be. That's not going to happen and not realistic, and they're making money and you're not going to. Obviously, there are ways to make money with that, but majority of the time you're going to lose. So I'm proud of you for getting into the weeds of it with Acorns, getting your feet wet, and now figure out how can I continue to learn. Ramit Sethi, he's another big financial personality in the world, and he has a great book called I'll Teach You to Be Rich, and he kind of sets up, explains to people how to automate their investing using a platform like Vanguard or Fidelity or Schwab, where you kind of set up your own Acorns. Acorns, they charge a monthly subscription to you, but Vanguard, you can kind of do it yourself as well. It's the same premise, just doesn't have additional fees on it, and just allows you to start allocating money towards S&P 500 funds, towards international funds, high growth funds, small caps, etc., and allows you to build a diversified portfolio. But I'm curious if you added your contributions up to, we'll call it $500 a month until you're 65, how much money you would have when you're 65 years old. This is at assuming a 7% rate of return. So 10% returns minus 3% inflation. How much would you have when you're retired at 65 years old? Putting $500 in a month.
If I put 500 in a month, God, I don't know. Millions, yeah.
$1.7 million in today's dollars.
Yeah.
Which would be a phenomenal spot to be in. That's, again, only contributing $500 a month in there. So as you continue to grow your income, increase your income, can I do $1,000? I mean, currently right now you could do $1,000. You can do $2,000. Based off of what you said about your car loan not enjoying having that, I would say pay off the car loan first, and then, hey, let's start attacking investment accounts and putting a lot more money in there.
Okay, can I make a bold statement since I know you're recording this podcast?
You're welcome to make bold statements on here.
I'm going to pay off my car by the end of 2023.
Let's go. I love that. You got 6 months to do that. You got plenty of cash flow in your budget to do that. And I think you can have it paid off by, we'll call it the end of October. I'm going to challenge you that.
Oh, okay.
Back end of October, that's 4 months from now. I think you can do it. So, sorry, that's 5 months from now. Even easier. 5 months from now, you can do that.
Yes.
So,
all right.
Everyone, you heard it here. We'll check back in at the end of October, in November, or even December. Maybe we'll give Sophie till January 1st, but we'll check back in with her and see if she's paid off that car. Well, a few other questions for you, and then we'll wrap this up here. But what's the largest financial mistake you think you've made in your life?
Okay, this isn't honestly the car thing that does like tick me off, but I'll give you kind of a fun one. I actually gave away $500 to a modeling scam last year while I was in Japan, and it was like a really well thought out scam. Like it literally passed one of my agents. And then when my second agent was like, no, it was already too late. I had gotten excited and ACH wire transferred them the $500, which of course they do ACH wire transfer because there's no way to get the money back. So that was just annoying because that was $500 that like, exactly. So that just irks me to know a little bit, but yeah.
That's frustrating. And I think most people in this world have, whether it's buying some on the internet they saw that they thought was real or a scam.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have made issues. That happened to me one time when I was younger. I was doing an online business and I sent someone, I think it was $500 or $1,000, thinking they were going to do something for me, and never heard from them again. And you live and you learn. So I'll take that mistake then with a couple $100 and making a much bigger mistake now. So
yep.
What's one thing you wish you knew earlier about personal finance?
This sounds so silly, but I feel like just the mindset of like you can, like I've always had in my head, and this is something I've had to work on, that like money is bad or like rich people are mean or like I can't make a lot of money because I don't come from that. So I think I wish I would have known earlier that like there is money to be made and like you can make money and you can start from nothing and get creative. Like there is so much money in this world, especially with the internet, that if you just know and if you do your research and if you learn, like you can make really good money, and you can make really good money on your own without working for somebody else. I wish I would have been like you and started investing at like 16 or 17. Like I wish I would have seen this world of like online business and making money and all the things at an earlier age. So
you're still 21 years old and you're figuring that out now. And there definitely is a lot of money in this world. There's a lot of money to go around for everyone. It's figuring out, okay, how do I build the relationships? How do I build a business that provides value to other people? And how do I monetize that? You're doing UGC content that provides value to people. You're doing modeling that provides value to people. And it's figuring out how do you do that and provide value to people and get paid in return. And a lot of money to be made, a lot of money to you can't be chasing get rich quick schemes that you see on TikTok. That's, hey, drop ship or day trading, etc. That's not going to help you there. But building something sustainable, you can definitely do, and a lot of money made out there with the internet. And you're young, you're 21 years old, you're making a lot of money, you're making almost six figures. I think you'll be well above six figures by the end of this year. It sounds of it, and you're doing that all from gigs you're finding on the internet, from freelancing opportunities, and also stuff you're doing in real life with modeling and acting. So you have a great path ahead of you being 21 years old and figuring out your finances and budgeting and living well below your means too. So
yeah.
Sophie, well, awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show today, and definitely we'll be in touch in the months to come to hear how paying off the car is. Expect an email from me in November, because I think you'll be able to do it by the end of October. And everyone else watching will be waiting to hear as well. So,
well, thank you so much, Bailey. I appreciate your time.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for watching this interview with Sophie. Sorry for the issues, the quality issues with the camera. We had a lot of different technical difficulties with recording platforms that we were using, but wanted to put this out of here anyway because we had a great call and a great conversation with Sophie. She's young. She's doing well in LA financially. Was smart about school, only taking $5,000 out in student loans, getting a lot of scholarships, and being in a spot where she can pay off those student loans now, depending on what happens with student loan forgiveness. And now she finds herself in a spot where she's able to save over $2,000 a month. She does have about $10,000 of a car loan, but you heard her say herself that she is going to pay that off by the end of this year. I think she can do it sooner, quite frankly, because she doesn't enjoy having that debt. So she's definitely in a good spot. She's young. She's 21 years old, already thinking about how to invest, how to start building her future and her financial future. So yeah, really appreciate you watching today. And if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. That means a lot to me. And if you want to be on the show, make sure you shoot me an email at the email below, and we'll see you next time. So thanks for watching. Bye-bye.